Welcome to week 2, and this is session 3. It's Monday, May 19th. Thank you to Eric Scott and Melissa Murphy for being here, being present. Appreciate that very much. Tonight, just the same announcements as last week. If you have had problems getting Adobe Animate going, if you had Adobe Flash, just upgrade like I did, and it'll come down and it'll rename Adobe Flash, or probably not rename, but upgrade that product, because it is a new release of Adobe Animate, formerly Adobe Flash Professional, and it'll leave that on your. Might as well turn on my camera. It will leave that on your computer after the upgrade. Tonight's agenda, we're going to go over the week 2 overview and objectives, and the reading and tools. And oops, I had the wrong date there. Tonight's session. It's May 9th. So the discussion on UX and UI for mobile devices, also in the first hour. After our break, we'll go into the assignment, do an overview of that, and then do an overview of the assessment also. That's a lot to get done tonight, but hopefully it'll all go well. Just remember, we have Melissa is very confident. Remember our project. I think everybody's pretty clear about what this is. I just had a really good conversation with Eric and Melissa about last week and the any feedback. And one thing we came up with that we're going to do, we'll make a change. Unfortunately, it won't affect you because you've already had week 1, but going forward, what we're going to do, and I'm going to propose this to the course author too, to just make that week 1 discussion. You don't have to be committed and developed on your idea by Wednesday night at midnight. Instead, we'll give students the opportunity to present several ideas that they're considering and mulling over, and that will give some opportunity for them to get feedback. So thanks to both Eric and Melissa for providing some ideas along that line. Okay, self-promotional infographic that's interactive and animated. Yeah, so I'm basically saying I admit that it's very difficult. It was very difficult to expect everybody to have a very well-developed idea on their project. So I admit that. So hopefully going forward, I actually didn't mark anybody down for saying, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So I get that it's difficult. And especially when your concept of interaction is evolving. And I realized that in the second lecture last Wednesday, I attempted to evolve your concept and your appreciation for the interactivity that was possible. And I have to admit that that information that came to you Wednesday evening or later came after the possibility you could be influenced by that with your discussion posts. So I'm making all sorts of admissions here. So I made it a rule that nobody I think both Eric and Melissa both fit in the category of people that weren't clear on what they were going to do, and I'm not faulting them at all. So, and I didn't take any points off for that for the discussion. Talking about grading and discussion, I expect to have our feedback to you for the assignments by tonight, later on tonight. After the class, I'll get back to work on that, and definitely my deadline is tomorrow at noon. That's my deadline, so that I can provide you quick feedback so you can begin using that on this week's assignment. So this week, remember how I mentioned first week we developed the idea, second week we come up with the assets, third week we put it in together into an interaction, and fourth week we polish it up. So this week we're just focused on assets, the things that we're going to use, such as graphics, text, possibly even some code snippets, which don't need to be plugged in. We just need to kind of begin focusing on the code snippet resources. So all of those come into play. So that's the UX and UI. UX meaning user experience, short for that, and UI standing for user interface. We begin to put together, based upon our storyboard, each scene, and I'll show you later what that will look like, because not only will we create the assets, but we'll also bring them into our project and into the project file and put them into the library ready for usage when we begin creating the animation. So our objectives in general this week are to define and understand the importance of creating a good user interface for desktop and mobile devices. It goes hand in hand with last week, but we'll get into more detail about some of the tips and tricks for developing a good user interface for an interactive application. And then create and execute original artwork pertaining to a self-promotional piece. And then to add to that would be finding music, if you're interested in music, or even working on audio files that you create by custom, and all the audio files that you might want to use, and potentially video. But so far, nobody has had an application where they used video. So, but that would obviously be another one of the types of assets that you can put together for your project. The points this week discussion will go into more detail about the UX and UI for mobile devices, and then the assignment will be focused exclusively on the assets that you put together. Eric just mentioned he might put his cat animation video on this project. And I'm sure you thought of that when I was mentioning custom audio. Am I right? Because you created custom audio for that. And you probably thought that was, it's obviously a video. So, yeah, good point. Let's see. Yeah, you have it on YouTube. And so something happened to my connection there. Okay. It continued to record though. So what I was saying is video, YouTube, yours is a YouTube. I'm on a Wi-Fi, and I'm wondering if that, I'm right near the router, so I was a little surprised that happened. Can you still hear me okay? Okay. All right, well, I'll keep going. Yeah, that was my Wi-Fi connection that hiccuped. Might just have to get a wire. My router is only about 15 feet away, so I was a little surprised by that. Okay, so building the assets and then the assessment. It says 50 points, but I'm quite sure that's a typo, and that is worth 100 points. But I'll just remind me, if you would, during the break. I'll confirm that. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so week 2, readings and tools. here is the URL of our video that we're watching. Oops, I just touched my my pad there and it went too far. So week 2, readings and tools. This is the first URL that you can read. Creating and publishing an HTML5 Canvas document. Keep in mind this is HTML5 Canvas, and it also talks about a video converting and reusing ActionScript assets in HTML5 Canvas. So lots of people have regular ActionScript 3.0 based project files from Adobe Flash, and you know that those are the ones that output Swift.swf files. Those are completely dependent upon the Flash player being present in the browser, having been installed in the browser, whereas this here is talking about how to take the assets that you may have created in an ActionScript 3.0 project file and bring them into your HTML5 canvas. And the layer and timeline works quite well, objects and so on. Unfortunately, the ActionScript needs to be rewritten as JavaScript. So that's the one thing. And that you knew about that from the assessment. Okay, Melissa mentioned it's worth 80 points. Thanks for checking that, Melissa. Yeah, I think we've reorganized some of the points in recent months. It used to be worth 100. And oh yeah, I know where it went. It went to that week 4 quiz that everybody gets to take. That's worth about 20 points. That's where those points went. Okay, then week 2, second item is creating shapes in the merge and object drawing modes. If you remember the difference between the merge and object drawing modes from your Adobe Flash days, that is where we had the merge. You don't have the concept of an object. The merge only looks at the attributes such as color and and if it's the same color, it will merge in your drawing, whereas the object is distinct and there's no, even though it's the same color, there's no overlapping. And so objects retain their own identity. Even when you move it over and move it away, you can see that it leaves a place where it had gone into. And so it'll remind you the different ways of creating shapes. The important reason for that is really for drawing. If you're going to be drawing a lot of assets using Adobe Animate, then it's good to know about this merge capability. And it's just a little setting that you set there in the toolbar, choosing whether it's merge or object. If you're going to do a lot of animation, the object mode is really preferred because it's objects that you're going to be dealing with and giving names to and assigning behaviors to and tweens, associating tweens with objects and so on. So there's not a lot of student projects that have a lot, are like Adobe Animate drawing heavy, if you know what I mean. They're just not really leveraging the tool, the drawing capabilities of the tool for this project. They typically leverage assets that they've already created in the past and audio that they come up with or they find. So not so much drawing of objects and items. And then a refresher on using the shape tool. Then our third item that we'll be going over is the drawing and animate strokes with variable width. That's a fairly new feature, not this release, but the previous release, where strokes could have their own width associated based on zoom level, which is a very nice feature to have those two relatively connected, the zoom level and the width of a stroke. And then the WebGL content. I haven't talked much about WebGL, but think of it as another library of code. And you remember how we talked about creating a library of code at the beginning of the course in the course description about how you can create a collection of code that you can then reuse and use in other projects. And I think you may recall how I explained how the code snippets are a type of code library because it's code that is organized in different categories of types of code, and it's reusable. So that already fits that definition. Obviously, with your project, you're going to be doing some customization of those code snippets, and you may want to hold on to the customization as opposed to letting go or not using that as part of a future project. I also wanted to mention that keep in mind that the set of functions and code snippets that Adobe Animate provides to us is a subset of the larger set that Adobe licensed from Grant Skinner. If you recall, I went to the website createjs.com, and that there is the full library of code that Adobe licensed. So keep in mind that what we have is just a subset, and if you choose to use some of the functions and code snippets from that larger library, you can do so by bringing them into your project. And if any of you are interested in any of those, if you click on the createjs.com and see some other routines that interest you that we currently aren't exposed, I say the word exposed or imported or made available to you through Adobe Flash, let me know. Excuse me 1 second. Okay, so back to the conversation. WebGL is its own unique library, and it is open source. And when I say open source, I mean it's readily available to anybody. You don't have to pay to license the code. But it's its own set of routines that are over and above what Create.js has brought to the table. And WebGL has a set of routines that focus on doing 3D-dimensional work. And we didn't talk about this much. I did mention it briefly when I was looking at some of the templates that are available last week in the very first session of Adobe Animate. I think I skipped over it. I said I would talk about it later. So the WebGL has its own. I think I might lose you. I just saw a little message that said my internet connection was unstable. Is everybody there? Okay. Can you still hear me? I think that hiccuped again. Yep, I'm going to have to get me a wire that'll connect my computer directly to, so I'm hardwired. Hello, Kendra. Yeah, this Wi-Fi connection, I don't know what's wrong with that. I really don't know what's wrong with my my router. Anyways, I apologize for that. I will look into getting a hardwire, and that will stop this this problem I'm having. So as I was saying, WebGL is its own set of libraries. It's open source, which means that it's freely available, and Adobe has also incorporated that into their in the same way they brought in Create.js routines and made those available through code snippets in Adobe Animate. So did they do the same with WebGL. So that's for three-dimensional routines. And so in the same way we had the code snippets, it's similar. You would have a different set of code snippets that would be made available. And during the break, I'll look those up and show some of that to you. All right, let's see. We zipped through that pretty quickly. So, well, why don't I just show you the WebGL now. Get off the break slide and I'll explain to you WebGL. A little bit better. See, knowing a little bit about WebGL would also potentially influence your decision. Let me share this screen. Share your decision on doing your animation. So here is WebGL preview. We've already talked about this. This option here chooses a project file of type Canvas. This is the traditional ActionScript 3.0 project file that is different than which has the SWF file output. So this WebGL, let me do this and look at the templates that come here. And so here, if you click on templates, I did a file new, and then clicked on templates here. And right here is a sample animation, a WebGL document. I'll click OK. And you can see that this is a different file type, a different project file type than the Canvas. This one is WebGL. And if it were Canvas, it would read Canvas here. And if it were the ActionScript, it would have nothing right there. So I'm going to, I did this last mod, and let me just attempt it again. All right, so you can see the animation. So this is using JavaScript. It's not interactive in any way, even though it is JavaScript. Oh, wait a minute, you probably don't see this. There you go. Can you see the peacock with the moving feathers now? Okay, great. So this is a WebGL animation. So the WebGL animation is, the animation is taking place on this level here, and the objects, if you check in the object library, you have these various you can see here. Let me see if I can zoom it. So you can see scene 1, feather, and symbol 1. So a feather, double click, and then in symbol 1, feather row object here. So this is a different object that's being animated. Feathers all. Ground, the peacock body, just a symbol, and then a tween. So we're not going to focus a lot on the WebGL, but I just want you to be aware of it because it's different than just the Create.js JavaScript. Its output creates, it uses WebGL, but you know, if you were to look in your actions, let me try that again. Might be off my screen. Hold on. Want you to. Just want you to check out the actions. Hold on. I think there's something wrong. Oh, it's off my screen. All right, hold on. There it is. Okay. So as you can see, there's no scripts. This is what I wanted to show you. And so that's why it's a different model than the interactive model that we're wanting to focus on. And so there's no little A's in the timeline on the various frames. There's just no actions whatsoever. So this is really not going to be a focus of ours. We will learn about it, but we're not going to teach it because it doesn't help us with the interactive aspect of our animations. I checked my watch to see how we're doing for time. And why don't I just go right into the discussion, and because we're a little bit ahead of schedule. So what we're doing is we're taking what you developed from last week's discussion, you're bringing over into this discussion, and now you're going to focus on how the assets that you create and the interactivity. Let me share your screen, or share my screen, and show you. Can you tell me what you see on the screen now? I want to make sure that I'm sharing my screen properly. Is it the course? It's probably, I probably don't have the right thing that I'm sharing right now. Okay, what do you see now? Okay, good. Great. Okay, let's go over the discussion for this week. Understand the needs of our target audience is paramount. People no longer rely on their desktop computers or laptop to surf the web, to research and find information. And you know where this is headed. The trend is creating content that is not only well laid out on a larger monitor, but to make it have a good user interface and a good user experience on mobile devices. As designers, our job isn't to just create stunning graphics for print and websites, but to incorporate our designs to achieve a good UX and UI on mobile devices. For the first part of this discussion, research and write a minimum of 100 words with a minimum of 2 citations about best practices for creating content for mobile devices that are not only creative, but employ good UX and UI. ProQuest, Shark are great places to start. Be sure to not copy and paste more than 20% of your total summary from the citations. A minimum of 80% must be in your own words. For the second part, explain how your layout for your mobile devices achieves good UX and UI. Be specific on why you did what you did. Share your thought process. Include your storyboard for your desktop and mobile version to show how you solve the issues with dealing with viewing on a smaller device. So this is where you get from last week your storyboard, and you can include it and need to include it here in the second part. All right. And then here's the example, and then include a JPEG of your storyboards you created in week 1's assignment. Be sure to embed the photo in the discussion, not just link to it. This will allow your fellow classmates to easily see your storyboards and can reply without having to download them and open them on your computer. So let me give you some examples of what this is referring to. Now, I work at a company called Unique Products, and we have this exact issue. We have to be concerned. This is the website that we have. It is staged on servers by Amazon Web Service. It's out in the cloud. We don't have any physical computers in the company for our servers. They are all virtual systems out in the cloud. So, and whenever we have a large amount of traffic, it automatically scales up to have multiple other virtual computers. So it's all done automatically. So what I wanted to show you is how we solve this problem of having the fact that our website's going to be visited by people not only on a desktop with a nice large 1500 pixel by 860 pixel display, but also by individuals who have mobile devices. So what I want to show you is to simulate the smaller mobile device. And here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pretend that the browser window represents the size of the display. So I'm grabbing a corner of the browser window. And what I want you to do is pay attention to the content that is available and that we're presenting to the individual based upon the size of the browser window. And it's going to happen dynamically. And so we're going to bring it down. First of all, it's scaling the content. The assets are being scaled. But at a certain point, they're going to change. Right there. So they went from there to there. So what this represents is the size of a tablet. Now, our class isn't focused on creating an animation for the size of a tablet. We're only focused on a large display and a mobile device. So you don't need to worry about this size dimension, but we are worried about it at our company. And so when we're simulating as if we came to this website with a screen of a tablet. And as you can see, we dynamically changed the options here. No longer are we presenting all the options. And also the content that was over there on the left is now superimposed and now in a different grid here as you scroll down. So what I'm showing you is how we are sensitive to this exact issue of dynamically accommodating different display devices. Okay? Now, let me keep on going and show you what happens if we were a mobile device, and it had the size of a mobile device. Okay, so the bottom is not scaling. So I expected that we were going to lose this graphic, but they've been able to scale it down without being pixelated and keeping it on the screen. So that's pretty good. We right now have two major settings. Now, this is a tough question, but I'm kind of curious. Do you have any idea? This is done in HTML5, but it's actually, I don't even think I'm going to ask you the question because it's a difficult one. This is actually being done with in CSS, and CSS is outside the scope of this class. You've had CSS in your other classes, like your HTML classes, and so this is cascading style sheets. And there's a new capability in the CSS now that will dynamically change your what styling you're using within your style sheet. And so this is what's being done with websites. Now, we don't have in Adobe Animate, we don't have the ability to use CSS. So I just wanted to present the concept of the difference between how a website solves this problem versus how we're going to solve this problem. So with Adobe Animate, we do it with having different designs. And the mobile device actually is going to be a different project file altogether. So let me share. What do you see on the screen right now? I may have missed something to show you. The CSS tutorials on the screen? Okay. Okay. When I go to my PowerPoint, it says, there we go. Okay. So we are not in our discussion. Oops, I went back. Discussion there. We are not doing solving this with CSS. We are actually solving this with different project files altogether. Let me bring up this here. And so I'm going to close this. So your desktop file will be one project file, and this will be pertinent for your assignment this week. So you would use this one for your desktop one, and you can put in the exact sizes. We haven't yet started talking about the assignment yet, but I'll show you that here in a moment. And then over here we have a different project file for the mobile device. You could choose either Android or iOS, either one of these. So it's a different project file altogether. The output, as you can see here, the published settings will be set for Air for Android, and use the Air for Android document to create applications for Android devices. So it's not the same thing that a website's doing. We're doing it with different output files. And so I just want to be clear that you are clear about that, how a website solves this problem versus how we're solving that problem. Any questions at this point? Okay, so back to the topic of the discussion. So in this, we are talking about the difference between practices of creating content for mobile devices. And so, as you know now, we're going to be using a different project file altogether, and we're not going to be taking advantage of CSS. And some of the concepts here in interactivity, obviously you have the difference between displays versus mobile devices. With a display, your pointer is a mouse, and with a mobile device, your pointer is your finger. So obviously, you have to be concerned about the fact that your mouse pinpoints one pixel, whereas your finger is multiple pixels. So that's one thing to keep in mind in designing your mobile user interface. Other concepts that relate to the mobile is that the mobile can be used, the scrolling capability of mobile, scrolling up and down and left and right, and where you have different scenes. And that is very effective with a mobile device application. Whereas with a website, different scenes, they don't, usually the interactivity that takes place to get to a different scene would be, for example, a button. And you would click a button to bring up a different screen. The scrolling on a application is very similar, with the difference between a display, a regular display, and a mobile device. Vertical scrolling is abundant in both applications. Keep in mind that the mobile application you're creating is like an installed app, as opposed to a web page that you're going to. Now, some companies are not resorting to creating apps, but instead they're using their website and doing it like we've done it. We actually don't even have a mobile app for our website. We just do the CSS and use the CSS for us to dynamically change from one to the other. So you'll find more principles that differentiate with your research between mobile devices and displays. The ones that I've described are the major ones in designing for user experience and user interface on mobile devices. Now, the second part of this discussion, you can just reflect upon what about your design you're going to change that will help your app to work on a mobile device. So last mod, one of the students attempted to and was successful in creating a design that where the graphical image that was used worked for both designs, both the larger display as well as the smaller mobile device with a high resolution. You'll see that when we look at the assignment during their next hour, you'll see that the dimensions are fairly close, and so that student was able to use an image viewport that was perfectly square and reuse that for both designs. So if you don't do that, you're going to be tasked with realizing that your images for one design might be one dimension, whereas the images that you would use in the mobile might be a different dimension, and you would have two different images. That's actually what we end up doing at my work. We have two different size dimensions, and sometimes even three, that we interchange and we use as assets. So so keep that in mind, that you may because of your design, and you may choose a landscape design and one, a portrait design another. you would be tasked with creating different different images. So let's pause right now. We'll talk about the assignment when we come back. I'll go ahead and pause the recording. Are there any questions before we break? Okay, great. Okay, we'll see you in 10 minutes. All right, well, welcome back from our break. And now we're going to talk about the assignment 2, if there are no questions about the discussion. I think that this discussion will be a little bit more straightforward than last week when you weren't too sure about what you were going to be working on. So I think we're good there. So assignment 2, building the assets. This week we'll be setting up 2 documents. One's for the workstation, and the other one is for mobile. For each respective resolutions, and begin to create your assets and import any existing assets you may be using. So let's look at that. I'm going to can you tell me what's on the screen right now? Canvas. Okay, good. Assignment overview. Okay, so this week you'll set up the 2 documents for each respective resolutions. Those resolutions are down here. 640 by 1136, vertical or horizontal, based on your storyboard. So in other words, you can do landscape or portrait using those dimensions. So it can be 640 by 1136 or 1136 by 640. And then the desktop one is 1280 by 720. So you see how similar those are. And that's thanks to the fact that mobile devices actually have higher and higher resolution these days. And so you can see 1280 is not far from 1136, and 720 is not far from 640. Now you can see why the one student was able to leverage their images for both designs. So let's read about this. This week, again, you will set up your 2 documents for each respective resolutions, begin to create your assets, and import any existing assets you may be using. So we'll have you bring those in to each project file, okay, and put them in the library. Be sure to create your own original art for any buttons or graphics. This is a self-promotional piece, so using clip art or any free stock images wouldn't be a good choice. Anytime you represent yourself to obtain work using someone else's artwork, even if you are paid for it or distributed royalty-free, should be avoided at all costs. You are selling your talent as a designer. Now, I need to mention a little bit of a caveat here, because on one hand, we're discouraging the reuse of other people's graphical images, but keep in mind that we're encouraging, we may be discouraging that, but what we are encouraging is that you use code snippets, which is a different type of thing. Obviously, it's not an image, but we are encouraging you to use code snippets, which are part of the assets of your animation. So we're not discouraging you from using code snippets as part of your project. So it sounds like that there might be a little bit of, 2 standards here, but code can't be copywritten to the same degree that graphical images can be. I think that's my theory on that. So, so don't be discouraged by the fact that we have the 2 different standards depending on images versus artwork. Okay, you can draw your assets in Illustrator, Photoshop, or Animate, but be sure to save them in the correct format required for animating. Okay, and your Animate CC, formerly Flash document, can be set up as an HTML5 canvas or ActionScript 3 for your desktop and mobile version to start. Now, we've really wanted to encourage HTML5 canvas as the file format that you use, just because that is where the technology is heading in that direction. The although Adobe Animate and with ActionScript 3.0 can do some things that Adobe Animate can't do so readily with the canvas base, but even though we're encouraging you to go in that direction because that's, we believe, the future. The ActionScript 3.0 is completely dependent upon a Flash player, so that's why we are trying to get away from that. So you can be set as an HTML5 canvas or ActionScript 3 for your desktop and mobile version to start. Just remember, as we learned in week 1, not all tools are available in HTML5 canvas, and not all actions or properties are converted over to HTML5 canvas from ActionScript 3. So be cautious that you don't enjoy all sorts of things that you can do with templates or samples that you find with ActionScript 3.0 when you discover you want to eventually get it into an HTML5 canvas, and then you have to do the export, the import, and then rewrite the ActionScript routines in JavaScript. So some planning ahead is important when you start your project. Arrange all the assets in the initial composition that you determined in your storyboard. For assets that are hidden off the stage that will be viewable when the user interacts with your infographic can be placed off the stage or have them in your library. Animation for this phase isn't necessary unless you are comfortable animating it. So here we're talking about putting assets on layers that will be on your timeline. So not only will they have them in your library, but you can pull them out into the layers of your timeline based upon your storyboard. The timing of those, again, we don't have to worry about the animation here during this week, but the timing of when they appear on the storyboard, that is something that you'll want to focus on here. When you design your storyboard with the various scenes, each of them have different durations, and depending on that scene and the duration of the object being on the screen will come right hand in hand into the planning of your timeline for this part of the assignment. And I'll show you here shortly some of the tips and tricks that I use when planning an animation and having various time slots and planning out the assets on my timeline. Arrange all the assets. Okay, so we read that. Animation for this phase isn't necessary. Okay, we're good there. And some links here about setting up your documents. We'll be doing that here shortly. And we'll be going through these steps right here. So, by the way, I got permission to make sure that the file type corresponds to the one that the instructions tell you to do. Last week they didn't, and I got permission to update that so that people can, so that they can, when you go and submit your file, it's not like a PDF. The instructions are saying PDF, and yet the Dropbox only allows for a zip file. I know some of you contacted me about that problem, and I messaged the course author and learned that I was able to, I'll be able to make those changes, make sure that works for you. Okay, and so this one is a zip file for this part, and so with the instructions. So let's now work on these instructions. Creating two documents in Adobe Animate, formerly Flash. Now I'm just going to go for the HTML5 canvas file type. Okay, I'm not gonna go with ActionScript 3. So if you'd like to follow along with me, you can begin working on your assignment. Just bring up Adobe Animate, and we can go step by step, those of you who are in the classroom right now. In fact, let me just check to make sure I'm not missing any chats that you had. Yes, okay, there's a question that I missed. Melissa asked the question, can we change our mobile from vertical to horizontal, different from the storyboard? Yes, that brings to mind a point that I need to make. Just so you know that everything that you worked on in week 1 can be altered in week 2. So my point is that if you made some commitments about what your design was going to be, just keep in mind that was week 1. Week 2, it's it's up to you to change any of your ideas and improve upon them. I'm not at all going to expect you to be committed and consistent with what you just talked about. I have even allowed people to change what their idea was in week 2. So I'm very much open to that, because this is a work in progress. It's an evolution, and it's really important that we be flexible. That's the world we're in. Okay, so now what I'd like each of you to do who are present, I'd like you to bring up Adobe Animate and let me know when you're ready. And because what I'm going to do is just have you step through the instructions that we follow as we work on the assignment together. I'm wanting to make sure that I am sharing my screen in a way that you can see. Normally Zoom puts a little green bar around the screen that I'm sharing, and when I move away from that, I always worry that I'm not sharing the screen. So right now, would you mind telling me which screen you see on the being shared right now? That'll help me make sure I'm not losing you. Okay, good. Animate. Okay, and let me see here. Okay, now can you tell me what screen you see shared? I'm hoping that you see the assignment in Canvas. Okay, good. All right, well, looks like things are working. So step number 1 here, create two documents in Adobe Animate. And it gives a naming convention right down here. So we'll follow that here shortly. So bring up Adobe Animate. And I want to make sure I've shared that Adobe Animate. Okay. Okay, now I just need to ask, can you see Adobe Animate? Okay, great. So I'll bring up Adobe Animate, and let's first start off with the 640 by 1136. So File, New, and then I make sure you click on General, and then I choose the HTML5 Canvas, and then right here you can put in either 640 by 1136 here, or switch it around so that the width is 1136 and the height is 640. All right, and click OK. All right, next step is to name your web document. In fact, the number 3 gives the name of your mobile document. And I'll just copy and paste. So then you do File, Save As, and then put in the name, DS365 Simon 2 mobile underscore first dot last. Actually, you put in your name there, first dot last. And what I'm going to do is put this in a folder that I can go access. And bulb just burned out. Dropbox work. You. Now, even though this has the same name, a different name, what I want you to do is create a folder. Wherever you save your project, I want you to create a folder first and put it in that. So we'll create a folder for mobile. The reason is because when you publish it, it's going to have a similar subfolder names with the assets. That's one thing different than with HTML5. That the Canvas is that when you publish it, it creates subfolders that are where it puts assets and images and JavaScript and things like that. And you want to have a place where if you have another project file, you don't want that in the same folder. So we'll put this one, we'll create a mobile one full subfolder, and I'll just push save there. So now it'll be safely in that subfolder. And let me know if everybody's done what I've done, and let me know if you need any help before I go on to the next number 2, the desktop. Let me ask the question: does anybody need any help at this point? This is good. Hopefully Eric and Kendra are good. Okay, Kendra's not that far yet. Kendra, if you like, I can have you share your screen. I can help you if you're stuck, or I can just continue on if you're not stuck. Haven't heard from Eric, so hopefully he's doing okay. Okay, Kendra, can you turn on your microphone so I can understand your question?
What document?
Okay, so we did File, New, and then make sure you click on General, and then HTML5 Canvas, and then you override the default width and height with the numbers that are here, 640 by 1136. So you change that to 640, this to 1136, or vice versa, depending on your portrait or landscape mode. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, you're just going too fast, though. What's the width and height again?
Oh, sure. It's 640 by 1136.
What was that second part?
1136, 640 by 1136.
That doesn't look like yours.
If you'd like, you can share your screen. So I can either have you share your screen and help you, or I can continue. And then we can.
I think I did.
You think you did it?
Yeah. It says it won't let me share unless. Wait.
Oh, I have to stop to share. So you want to share then?
Will it work?
You're sharing? Not yet.
I thought I was.
Okay. Now I see your screen. All right. So here's the problem. What program are you running right now?
Oh, I thought I was in Animate and I wasn't.
Common mistake.
Thank you.
Wait. First, the type over in the far left, HTML5 canvas. Good. And do you know if your mobile design is portrait or landscape?
I haven't decided yet on that.
All right. We can change this, but let's go ahead with what the defaults are. So 640 width, and height 1136. So that's a portrait.
1146.
1136. Okay. Next thing, do file, save as. And now let's be very careful about where we want to put this. Do you happen to have a DES 365 folder created yet?
Yes.
Awesome. Can you go navigate to that? And then once you go into there, on the far right where it says save as, can you click that, the drop down arrow over up, that little arrow that's pointed, that one, pointed downward. Okay. So here, what I want you to do is I want you, perhaps you could create week 2 as a subfolder here. Do you know how to create a subfolder? It says new folder button down there on the left.
No.
See, it says in the dialog, it says new folder down there, right down there. See that button? Way down the bottom. Okay, right there, type in week space 2. That way we can kind of organize this a little bit differently. Okay, click create. And now what I want you to do is type in mobile, because and do, oh, sorry, click new folder. Let's create a new subfolder here and type in mobile, because I want you to create this or save this project file in its own separate folder. Go ahead and click create. Great, now you're down there. That's good. We want the project, because you're going to be dealing with 2 different project files. We don't want them in the same folder. So that's why we are creating the separate folder. Now, the name of this file needs to be DES365 underscore assignment 2 dash mobile, and then underscore your first name dot last name. So now type assignment 2 Oh, this one you want to put, well, you're a fast typist. Instead of right after under assignment 2, type in mobile underscore just to differentiate. Yeah. Assignment 2 underscore mobile. All right, actually assignment 2 dash mobile and then underscore. Good. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, that underscore is fine. Click save. Awesome. Okay, that's got that. You've done that first part. Now let's create another one. You can just leave this all open as it is. Do a file new, and this time do one 1280 by 720. And this one is going to be the one for your desktop. Do save as.
Oops.
All right, this time I want you to go up a folder from the mobile up to the assignment 2 folder, or week 2, sorry, week 2 folder. And here I want you to create a new folder, and this one I want you to call desktop, just so that we have it in a different folder. DESK top.
Sorry, you're breaking up. What did you want it called?
Desktop. DESKTOP. Okay. Click create. Okay. And so this one you want to name just like the other one, but the other one instead of the word mobile, put the word web. So it would be DES365 and no, you're good. You got your desktop subfolder. So now up to the save as. Oh, no, not yet.
Okay.
Instead of untitled -2, replace that with DES365 underscore assignment 2, and then assignment 2 dash web, and then underscore and then your first dot last name. That's good enough. Okay, and then you click save. Perfect. Okay, see how the 2 tabs are open there? You've got this one that's bolded is the one that the project file that you're looking at right now. And then there's to the left, there's a tab that is your mobile one that's not bolded. You can see the tab up there, upper left. Do you see the tab I'm talking about? The tabs I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay, good. All right, so, okay, that's good. So you're good. So I'm going to share my screen.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so now you have the 2 documents open. I got to catch up to you. 1280 by 720. File save as. Little trick there. I grabbed the name of the other one, so I have to retype it all. See. Okay. So now I've got the 2 just like you. All right, and I want to see what I'm sharing here. Can everybody see Canvas right now? Okay, good. Okay. Eric and Melissa, you guys are good?
I seem to have lost my chat box. I don't know how to get it back.
One way to get it back is if you have the toolbar across the top. If you mouse up there, and then there's an ellipses where it says more. If you click on that ellipses, the first drop down is chat.
I don't have a toolbar across the top.
Do you know how to make all your desktops appear?
Yeah, the slide forward. The only thing I see is Zoom.
Does it have red and a green in any of the windows that are up here at the top?
Does it show you mean on my other desktops?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you can know which desktop's being shared. And you can also sometimes see your chat box appear where it's not normally showing up.
Ah, I got it. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Microsoft decided to ask me about my updates. Okay, if your document is a native FLA file, save the document in its home folder directory, then zip the folder and submit it for grading, and name the folder and so on. So I think we're good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I want to do is go into detail about what is to be expected in these steps up here. We start off, we have the project files. Now let me show you some of the tips that I have. And you can do this in Microsoft Excel, and which is on your computer. This is just a tip that I do when I am doing different scenes, and it helps me when I am putting assets into the timeline. So I'll just be kind of generic, and I'll just say scene 1, and let me see if I drag that and bring it down. So let's say we've got 9 scenes. Scene 1, and it begins a begin time. So I do 0, and then a length of a time. So this is, remember how in your storyboard you had all those length of the scene. So let's say this scene is going to take 12 seconds. So I do that. And then here, what I do is I create a little formula. I just type the equal sign, and I do, let's see, 0 plus 12, let's see, equal sign, and then right here. And so this one starts at that time, and then stops at this time, number of seconds. And when you're looking at 24 frames per second, what this would be is, in fact, I think I might show you a little bit fancier where I can just say 12 seconds like that. And now the format has changed. I want you to be able to calculate your frames. That's what I'm trying to show you. Okay, so I'll just keep going with that for now. So this one starts at 0 seconds, scene 1, ends at scene after 12 seconds. In fact, that's probably a little bit long. I think what I'll do is make it like 6 seconds. This one starts at 6 seconds, and let's say it's 6 seconds long. And then you can just drag this down here. I don't think my formula is what so length, 6 seconds. So stop. There we go. Let me do this again. So this equals the start plus the length, and this one equals stop. There we go. And this one will be 6. Okay, now I think I have it. So starts it there, the length of the scene when it stops, and then you come down here, and this is equal to this one here. So scene 2, let's say it's 4 seconds long, and then here I can just drag this down because that one's going to be computed. And let's say this one is 5 seconds long, and this one is, let's say, 10 seconds long. As you can see, it's dynamically, I've got to change these. Let's see, that's D2. So let me scroll that down. There you go. Okay, so this one is 5 seconds. Let's say in your scene 6 is like, let's say 12 seconds. And then scene 7 is like 5 seconds long for that one. And let's go 3 seconds for that, and maybe 10 seconds for that. So there's a 1 minute full time. So it starts here, and then this is how long it is. And then here you add that plus that, and that then comes down to here. And you don't have to do this as part of the assignment. I'm just kind of giving you a little tip on planning out your timeline and so on. So 4 seconds long, it ends at frame 10 seconds into it. Starts at 10 seconds, 5 seconds long, 15, starts at 15, 10 seconds long, so on. So I have little formulas here, as you can see. This is that plus that, whereas this is equal to whatever the previous one is. So this helps me in getting my timeline plan just right. As far as the translation now into what that translates into for frames, remember it's 24 frames per second. And so the start will be 0, and then this one will be equals 6 times 24. So this one will start at 0 and end at frame 144. And we can do the same thing here. Go on down. I don't think this is going to work if I do 10 times 24. No. So equals 10 times 24. And then this equals 10. Oh, yeah, no, 15. 15 times 24 frames, frame 360, equals 25 times 24 frames per second, because it's 25 seconds. And then this equals 30 times 24 frames per second, so it's frame 720. And this is start frame and stop frame. And then equals, that's at 42 right there, so I do equals 42 times 24 frames per second, so that'll be frame 1008. This equals the 47 right there, so I type in 47 times 24 frames per second, and then equals 50 times 24 frames per second, and that's that frame, and then equals, and this would be actually 60 because 1 minute is 60 seconds. So 60 times 24 frames per second, so that would be frame 140. So you can see the start and stop of each of these scenes, and the objects will be on those on your timeline beginning on that frame. So this correlates to the frame on your timeline. So here we have all these frames, so 5, 10, so on. Because we're at 24 frames per second, then it will be going through 24 of these frames every second, and that's how it correlates with the spreadsheet that I'm doing here. So this helps me in calculating the exact frames that I want to be in, at least for the purposes of this part of the assignment. Now, we're going to be probably doing some adjusting, but at least this gives you an idea of where those frames are going to be. So you would just plug in right here what your scene lengths are into this type of spreadsheet. If you'd like, I can share the spreadsheet in the let's see, where would be a good place to put it. I could upload the document. Yeah, I'll put an announcement to it. So that way you can download it and use it. So these are frames. This is time. And then start frame. These are frames. So that helps me in now taking my animation, and I create layers. We had 9 scenes. Let's go with 9 layers, assuming that in our design we'll have 1 object per layer. Okay, so all I did is click here to add more layers. Your design might be different than this. I'm just kind of giving you a sample of how to do this assignment. So now we have 9 layers. And when you click on a layer, that means when you drag an object onto the stage, it will be associated with that layer. So, oops, I might lose you. Are you still there? Looked like I had a little hiccup again on my internet. It happened again. Yep, another hiccup in my Wi-Fi. So gotta make sure I don't forget to get a wire. Okay, so what I wanted to do, can you see animate on the screen? Okay, so I've got, in my design, 1 object per layer, and then here with the, can you see Excel on the screen? Okay, so these will be the start and stop, figuratively speaking, for my various scenes. And so the objects I will drop in on this particular frame, and then they will be on the screen for up until this frame. Start there, end there, start there, you know, each layer. Okay, so we need to now import the items into the library, import assets. So let's say you have a portfolio of images that you've acquired, hopefully from other classes. And let's say that our design is one where we like a slideshow where we'll go through one image to the next of our portfolio. Let's say that's our design. So now you import the items, and here is where it comes into play where you, depending on your design, if you can reuse the same images, that would be best. That way you don't have to create two different sized images for each of your two designs. So let me just make sure my image, I have a folder of images ready to go. Not there. Give me a second while let me pause my share. Let's see. Oh, I'm looking for where all my assets are. While I'm looking for this, I want to mention that I wanted to mention that an audio file, if you'd like to use, for example, a song, you can download an MP3 file. What I do is I like to go to Amazon and I purchase them and download them as MP3 file format, and then I import those into my library for animation. Looking at the time there to see if I'm getting close to our okay, I found them. Took me a second. Okay. So do file, import, and I'm going to do import to library, desktop. Oops, that was the other one there. Okay, so they brought them right into my library here. I got more than 9. It's funny. I clicked over here, and now I've got my assets in my mobile, and but I had already created the layers here in the timeline. So I'm now clicking back and forth. You're gonna have to do this for both of them, and so let me do that again for my web one. Import to library. Click open. And so they're there. And then over here, I'll just to catch up on this side, I'll have my 9 different layers here. So now I've got both my web design with my library loaded with my assets. And then here, I've got my the same thing. And like I mentioned about if you have an audio file, for example, let's see, I have an audio file here. Gonna bring that into my library. See that right there? We'll be working with audio. you don't have to have audio in your animation, but in case you do, then that's how that's done. File, import to library, audio file. Okay. Now we're almost out of time, but what the next step is, and we'll pick up on Wednesday. What the next step is to now move and bring your layer 1, bring the first image out, and that's how this that's when this comes into play here. So layer scene 1 will begin frame 0 or frame 1. HTML5 canvas is actually 0, and then it'll be there until frame 144, and then on scene 2 and so forth. Okay, so let's call it a night, and on Wednesday night we'll pick up where I left off. Any questions before we end? Eric had to leave, and Kendra had to leave. Melissa, do you have any questions? You're good? Okay, great. All right, we'll see you Wednesday night. Thanks again for showing up, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help. Talk to you soon. Good night.
I wanted to point out something with the assignment that is important, because if you look at the assignment here, it's specifying the sizes of your stage. What's important, though, is to just discover that the ratio between these is for the desktop is actually a 16:9 ratio. If you divide that by 80 and this by 80, you'll find that they come in relationship of 16:9, which is a typical orientation for a desktop screen. Obviously, it's not all screens have that ratio, nor that size and resolution, but our goal here is to target the most popular, the most used size for a desktop. Now, the mobile, on the other hand, is not in that same ratio. It's not a directly 16:9. This one here is a portrait, with a smaller dimension first, and then the larger dimension second. That's considered a vertical or portrait. And the intent with the assignment is that you can do your work in your design in Adobe Illustrator, and that the proportion of this will scale when copied and pasted into your Flash file. Let's see, I have it here. So this is a sample Flash file for the desktop, and so the ratio between these two, when scaled, will proportion from your drawing, will proportionally scale and fill out this area of your stage. So, so the ratio of this area, when scaled properly, will fill out. Scaled regularly will fill that out. Let's look at the mobile design. Mobile design, you take this, and let's get the dimensions of our mobile design. In fact, I can probably just bring it up already rather than recreating it. Okay, and we change that stage color, but here you can see the dimensions here. And likewise with this drawing, keep going the wrong way, you can do your work in here and then scale it uniformly. And using this free transform tool, you can scale it uniformly to fill out the stage. So that's important to understand, that your drawings can be brought in to your project file and scale. Now let's look at this for a moment and think about what's going on here with this particular design, and whether or not that is advantageous to bring this design directly onto the stage as is. Because a storyboard is useful if it's designed well and properly, that the scene that you create comprises all of the objects that will be involved in that scene. So in this design, that indeed is true, because scene 1 won't be changing any of the object placement or anything during scene 1. Scene 2, on the other hand, it won't be changing anything, and so this is a valid and effective design that can be copied and pasted into your template file as is. Likewise, scene 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now, if you have more animations going on, then it's a little more tricky. So let's bring up one with an animation associated with it. And if you were to copy the design from your storyboard and paste it into your template file, we actually did this with Melissa. Everything that didn't move became part of the background, and it was on its own layer, whereas that which moved was put on its own layer separately. The size is the dimension scaled properly into the desktop design, and so that worked. That which moved had to be put on a different layer, and it was scaled properly, proportionally, once it was pasted. So given that there is an animation, we still have a background that's consistent, and that which copies and pastes and scales, transforms into the right size. Similar to this scene, each of these scenes, that background will be able to stay consistent and useful, and it will live consistently throughout the entire animation. What will come and go is the hand will move, the text will come and go. This will actually be an animation that responds to a click. Now these objects will exist separately, all on the same stage, and will have a button associated with, or button action associated with them. All right, so the point being, it's still advantageous to copy and paste your design into your template for that desktop landscape. Let's look at the same goes for this. The scaling of the dimensions here also will scale into your mobile design, and the same rule applies for the animated objects. They will be brought over on separate layers. All right, so that's very valuable to know for doing this assignment, that your work from week 1 can be used and brought into your document files that you're working on for the week 2 assignment. So that was all I wanted. That was the point that I wanted to add. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And thank you for listening in.